Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here and it is officially induction ceremony week. And for the first time, we have our first ever three-time guest. It's Scott Crawford, the Director of Operations at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. And we're going to go over a little bit of the class today, like we have the last couple of years. Scott, welcome back to the show. And I guess congrats on being the first three-time guest. I'm not sure how much of an honor that is, but exciting for us for sure.
Hey, anytime talking baseball with you two is a great thing. So that's yeah. And I'll come on a fourth time. Just let me know.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely have to hold you to that. Really exciting stuff for this year's class. Obviously, some big headliners. Really great group this year. Before we kind of dive into each of them, I mean, how has the prep been going? How excited are you to get everybody out there to St. Mary's this year and to get this ceremony underway?
Oh, it's good. I mean, we've been working on it since, early February, right? When we
Yeah.
announced the inductees, and so it's an ongoing sort of 5 month planning thing, to get everyone organized. It was six inductees and plus Dave Perkins, the Jack Rainey Award winner as well.
Yes.
So we're sort of honoring seven people, and it's a lot to do, but it's well worth it in the end. The tent's going up today, and on we always put the tent up on Monday, so
Very
it
nice.
marks off the induction week, and here we go. It'll be all Saturday. I'll be here before we know it.
Well, it's been a busy week for you as well, right? I mean, you were just the Dome the other day, giving away the Tip O'Neill Award. How was that?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. I mean, we gave it to Vladdy for his great year last year. It's the second time he's won it. So we were down there. Jays are kind enough to let us on the field and do the presentation, and gives a great publicity for the Hall of Fame and St. Mary's, and it's we were used to going to Cincinnati about 7 years in a row for Joey, but that's switched over the years, which is great. There's so many great Canadian-born players. I mean, Josh Naylor went the year before that, and then Romano the year before that, and then Vladdy, and then Jamie Romack, Mike Soroka, James Paxton. So there's been a huge variety of Canadians win the award, which is great to see, because that means more Canadians are playing baseball, and that's what we all want.
It was even a great weekend series for it to happen with Denzel Clark having his little homecoming and having the nice series there with the big catch and the home run. But yeah, really exciting to get out there for that for sure. I bet.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being Denzel Clark, like robbing a home run, which is the ultimate dream of every outfielder that's ever played the game, and hitting home run.
Yeah.
You've only been in the big leagues for a week. You're in your hometown where you went and watched games just a couple of years ago as a kid, because he's not that old, and have your family in the stands. Like, what a dream weekend for Denzel. I saw him Friday night and said hi to him and congratulated him, and I'm just so happy for him.
That's
That's a
awesome.
wicked story. Just
80
an
grade
incredible
personality
story.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome.
All right, well, let's get into the class because obviously, six well-deserved inductions coming up this weekend. I think, we'll have to start with José Bautista. I don't know where else you're going to start with this class. For Jose getting in, I mean, obviously, I think for his impact on Canadian baseball, it's really interesting because those 2015, 2016 Blue Jays teams, I mean, you're anywhere around the game of baseball in those years. All you see is Blue Jays gear, the Edwin shirts, the Jose shirts. Really amazing the way that group really, or the impact that group had on baseball in this country. How do you kind of view Jose as a part of that and really becoming a Canadian baseball legend?
I mean, he's a legend 'cause he hit the home run, right? I mean, he had a great 10 years with the Blue Jays, no doubt about it. I mean, that home run obviously threw him over the top. Now he's in the conversations with Joe Carter and Joe's home run back when I was a teenager a few years ago. But Jose's a Blue Jay legend. He's top five in like every category there is. Plus he's won Silver Sluggers and top votes in MVP a couple of years, and he's on the Blue Jays level of excellence, which tells you how highly the Blue Jays honor him and his career, and think of him and his family. So it was a no doubter. Jose's getting in, and he's pretty excited. He's going to be here for a few days, and
Nice.
really support the Hall of Fame. So that's great.
There's a
That's
bit of a theme here, kind of with the 2015 team as well, because obviously last year with Russell Martin, right? And Zach touched on it, but I do want to hear a little bit more from you about the impact of that era of Blue Jays baseball on just Canadian baseball at large.
Well, it goes back. There's a cycle. Obviously, when the Blue Jays are good, kids get excited about baseball. More kids want to play. More kids want to watch. And then 10 years later, look at the cycle of young kids in baseball and AA, AAA, major leagues. Again, we talked about Denzel Clark, but you got Owen Casey and Tyler Black, and and Bo Naylor, who's young, and I'm gonna forget all kinds of names, but Mitch Bratt, who's on his way up, Jonah Tong, who's in Double A in his early 20s. Like 10 years ago, all these guys were 10 to 15 years old, and the Blue Jays were hot. They were in the playoffs. They were exciting. And you fast forward 10 years and look at the talent that we have coming into the big leagues now. It was same when the Blue Jays were good back in the early 90s. In the early 2000s, we had a lot of people come up. You look at that cluster of people: Ryan Dempster, Justin Morneau, Rich Harden, Érik Bédard, Jason Bay, Jeff Francis, Adam Lowen. They go on and on and on. At minus 10 years when they all sort of made their debut, and the Jays were the best team in baseball back then. So it definitely goes in a cycle, and it's exciting. And Jays, they had their good streaks again the last couple of years. So, I mean, obviously last year is a rough year, and who knows what this year will turn out. But if you take those few good years of Bo and Vladdy when they were in the playoffs, you jump forward 10 years, and I bet you we'll see another little jump in the Canadian baseball talent.
Yeah, it's funny you think about like this José Bautista era, and I think of the image, the video from the Canadian Future Showcase a couple years ago, where he walks into the dugout and Philip Chung, a Stanford commit, is there, just jaw on the floor as José Bautista walks into his dugout, just in awe of a Blue Jays legend coming out to support Canadian baseball, and it's really cool to kind of see that influence that he had. I guess for you breaking the news to him, what was kind of his reaction when he got the call?
Well, he didn't answer,
Oh no.
but which is totally fine. I mean, they don't know who's calling, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like when else someone calls your phone, you're busy, you can't answer right away. So, I had my speech prepared, and I was all ready to tell them, and they didn't answer. So I just left a message saying, "Hey, it's Scott from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. We've met twice. Not that he remembered me, but we met twice at a couple things." So I'm like, "Hey, it's Scott from the Hall of Fame. Just give me a shout when you get a chance. I want to chat with you for a couple minutes, right?" And like 5 minutes later, he called me back, and he was apologized, which of course you don't need to. Not everyone can answer their phone as soon as someone calls them. But he's like, "Oh, I was just eating dinner, and I called you back, as soon as we're done eating." I'm like, "Oh, no, of course, like no worries, all good, Jose." And I told him, that this is the honor we're going to give him, and he was like, they always pause for a minute, right? Because they're like, "Wow, that's a pretty cool honor." Because I mean, obviously he loves Canada. 10 years with the Jays. We got him when he was a struggling player when we got him right from Pittsburgh, and he became one of the best players of his generation for the next decade. And and it meant Candace mentioned much. The Blue Jays' level of excellence really meant a lot to him the other year. And now us, we're the Canadian Hall of Fame honoring him, and he was excited. He's bringing his parents and all his four kids and his wife and his brother, and like so he's got a great group of family members all coming, which also tells you it means a lot when
Yeah.
when they're bringing their parents and their brothers and he's got little kids, so traveling them across the country is obviously a big job, but he's bringing all them as well, so it means a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really awesome to see, especially when they embrace it like that. I guess we got to discuss the bat flip as well because as far as like imagery goes with a Canadian baseball moment, a Canadian sports moment, really, just kind of having that bat flip. How is that kind of changed your view of Jose Bautista, and how do you think that has kind of lived on as a legacy moment for him and for Canadian sports?
Well, I mean, definitely a legacy moment for him. I mean, it was such a key moment. I mean, I was at the stadium, I was up in the media press box watching the game. It was The stadium was rocking. I mean, the inning was so weird. I mean, the
Yeah.
Texas made 3 errors at the top of the seventh, and Elvis Andrews is a great defensive shortstop. Um, no one would imagine the same guy make 3 errors in one inning, let alone a guy who's really good at defense. And and then the throw off some choose bat knob that Martin threw and runs scored, and
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my, like what is going on? Like Jose shouldn't have even got up that inning if those errors hadn't happened, right? And he flipped the bat, and it was just so intense. And whether good, bad, some people love it, some people don't like it. It was the heat of the moment, and I'm not surprised that that bat went as high as it did.
No, it's a legendary moment in baseball history and Canadian baseball history. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I remember a couple of years ago, uh, Zach, myself, maybe a couple other friends, we were chit-chatting and we're talking about most iconic moments in Canadian sports history. And we threw that out there. We threw the Paul Henderson goal out there. We threw it was in the wake of Nick Taylor winning the Canadian Open. we'll just stick with Canadian baseball moments here. You think of maybe Canada being the U.S. at the World Baseball Classic. Where would you rank José Bautista's home run in terms of Canadian baseball moments?
Huh. Wow. Well, I mean, I can def top four. That's a tough one because I mean, Joe Carter. I got a couple. So Joe Carter's home run. I mean, it won the World Series, right? No shame to Jose's bat flip, which is obviously one of the greatest moments in Toronto Blue Jay history. Joe Carter's home run won the World Series. It's the ultimate bottom of the ninth, game six, but winner take all. It won the World Series. So I just have to go with that number one because that's the ultimate. I'd go Jose's number two. Just because again, just one level down, it wasn't the World Series, it wasn't the ninth inning, um, but still ultimately very, very important because it put them ahead in that game and then ended up winning the game. You got Canada winning the Pan Am Games gold twice, 2011, 2015, and of course us beating US in the World Baseball Classic. So I guess I got five there. But you can combine the gold medal games and the Pan Am if you want. But no, I mean there's so many key moments, and we're going to talk about someone in a minute who had a lot to do with those Pan Am game golds, which are right up there. It's so exciting, especially the one they won in right here in Ajax in Canada, in their home country.
Yeah, it's been it's obviously one of those moments that you kind of remember where you are for sure, and it's gonna live on forever. I guess, but before we move on from Jose, what are you kind of expecting from his speech? I figure like it should be a pretty interesting one from him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We tell the guys, we don't pre-read their speeches. We just sort of give them a timeline of how long we'd like them to speak for, and some speak shorter, some speak longer. But I think he's going to touch on growing up in Dominican Republic, and then obviously with his parents in the crowd, he'll touch on his parents, and we always tell them, make sure you thank your parents and your wife and your kids and all the typical stuff. But we also ask them like tell us something we don't know. Like, tell us something unique about you and your career that the fans will love. I mean, there's going to be, the tent's going to be jam-packed at the seams with a crowd in there that loves Jose and everyone else. And so I just tell us something we don't know, right? And they're not going to drop secrets from the clubhouse because you just don't do that. But just something that we don't know. So I'm hoping Jose says, tell us something about again, something that he did with his teammates along the way that was really touching, or some teammate did for him, or something cool like that. Because that's really what the crowd's looking for.
Yeah, it's a group of like giants of excuse me of Canadian baseball really. Jose, Greg Hamilton, Amanda, Asay. There's just this group of Canadian legends, and I kind of want to get to Amanda. Obviously, disappointing that it does have to be following her passing, but just really a giant of the Canadian women's national team and a legend for what she did on the mound. I guess kind of for you seeing her go in the year following Ashley Stevenson, how is their legacy being carried on through this induction?
Well, I'll tell you how much Amanda means. Ashley's taking her only vacation she's allowed all summer from Dunedin Blue Jays, and she's coming here for Amanda's ceremony.
That's awesome.
So that's how much Amanda meant to Ashley, anyways.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of ladies coming. Kate Posada's coming, and Nicole Lachinsky's coming. So it just means that much. I mean, Nicole's flying across the country. Kate lives close to us. That's great. She's coming, but Ashley's taking her only vacation all summer to come here, which is pretty cool. And Amanda was a legend. I mean, not she was a pitcher slash hitter, so she do both sides of the game. She was still playing. Like she was still on the team in 2021 when she passed away in 2022. So it wasn't like she was retired or done playing. She was still one of the stars of the team and stars of women's baseball internationally. And so she was going to have many more years ahead of her. And her parents are here. Her parents are going to accept her plaque for us. Her parents actually drove from British Columbia to here. They're
Oh
actually
wow.
here now.
Wow.
And but they love driving their RV, obviously, if they drove from British Columbia. They're camping at the local provincial park just outside
Nice.
of town because that's what they do. I mean, which is totally cool. But it's going to be tough for them. I know she's in the
Yeah.
BC Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame as well, and but it's going to be a tough speech for them. I assume Jose's speech will be really nice and happy and exciting, and I expect this speech to be a little bit more somber and sad in the way we're celebrating how great she is, but
Yeah.
obviously sad that she's not able to be here to accept the plaque herself. So it'll be definitely a different speech, and but her parents seem pretty good and pretty confident in themselves. So
Awesome.
I think they'll do okay.
Great.
No, for sure. The Blue Jays a couple years ago released a documentary, obviously on her, and to listeners not familiar with Amanda's story, would highly recommend giving the video a watch. In the video, a lot of her teammates are very emotional about obviously losing her as a leader, as a friend, based on the people you've talked to that were close to her, obviously her parents and stuff, how have they received the honor? How have they reacted to it?
When I called her parents, like her mom picked up, and I've never met them, but we talked. You can tell her dad was like in the room, but I was talking with her mom. You can hear him in the background, her mom and dad. So you could tell they're talking to each other. It was just, it was so touching. I mean, she was floored that the Canadian Hall of Fame would come calling for her daughter. She didn't expect it. She didn't know it was going to happen, of course. But again, like, and they've talked to a lot of their teammates. I mean, a lot of teammates are all over the world. There's some people coming up from Australia that played with her at some point along the way that are coming to her ceremony. So again, that also means how much Amanda meant. But people I've talked to have just been like, thank you for honoring her legacy. I mean, they have a day for her out in British Columbia every day or every year to honor her legacy and British Columbia baseball, and it's just great. And we're just so happy we can do it. I mean, she was a legend. No, it wasn't no fault. Like she passed away young, which is terrible. Like she was still playing, and that's the key thing that she wasn't done. She was going to do more remarkable things, and it just wasn't the time to allow her to do it. And so it's going to be special.
I guess, with kind of her achievements on the field too. I mean, you just kind of you read up and five women's World Cup medals, women's national team MVPs, silver medal at the Pan Am Games. Really just I mean, we kind of talk a little bit about the legacy. But for you, I mean, like what kind of made her so special and so talented as a member of those teams, and what made her a standout player when she was on the field?
I think she was competitive. I mean, she wanted to strike every single person out. She didn't want her defense to have to catch the ball. She wanted to strike them out. But she said like the friendliness of her too. Like every time you talk to her teammates and every emails I've gone through, people who some can attend, some can't attend, but they're all like, oh, she was such a great teammate and such a great person. She made it fun to play. Um, but they knew she was competitive and fiery at the same time when she got across the lines. But she said it was just she was so much fun. Like in the dugouts when she wasn't pitching or she wasn't hitting. She was fun to be around and just play the game and the game she loved, and she just promoted it and tried to get more women to play, more kids to play in general. And I think that's what the teammates really that I talked to really showed that she was competitive, but she's also had fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, obviously, the on-field results are excellent and sterling and everything, but it's just kind of the stories of her as a person really does seem like is what's going to last for sure. So, really really awesome that she's going to go in, and really really cool to have her and Ashley, and just kind of this wave of women kind of working their way in.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Fantastic.
All right. Well, let's keep moving on. Another huge member of the Canadian baseball community going in, and that is Greg Hamilton, obviously the head coach of the junior national team, a key architect with the senior national team. You mentioned, he was the one that built those 2011 and 2015 gold-winning Pan American game teams. Really a guy who's just kind of has his fingerprints like all over like basically every Canadian professional baseball player these days, and every kind of relevant youth Canadian that comes up, it's Greg Hamilton, plays a big role in that. So, I guess seeing a guy like him, what is if you were to sum up the impact that he's made on Canadian baseball, how would you put that?
I mean, he's single-handedly the biggest uh, impact on Canadian baseball. I mean, of course, he has other coaches and other teams, but Greg's been the guy for 30 years that's run the junior team, run the senior team, with help from his office, obviously. But he's been the head coach, the GM. He's been there on Ernie Witt's side for all the times when Ernie Witt's been the head coach. But yeah, I mean, Greg. every player you talk to, and every time you go back to the Baseball Canada banquets in January that Greg puts on, um, he gets a standing ovation. And that's
Yeah.
I would expect the same this year. There's a lot of people coming back to see Greg, Larry Walker and Ernie Witt and Denny Boucher and Dustin Mulligan and Filippo Mont and I can go on and on and on. I'm forget Pete Orr and Jamie Romack. Like there's a ton of guys coming back because they respect Greg for what they did for him when they were all teenagers. They're all 15, 16, trying to get on the junior team. And of course, you can only take so many, but he brought them on board. He nurtured them. He made them into better baseball players. And they went on, a lot of them went on to, either school in the States or in Canada or pro careers and did very well. So I think Greg is extra special, and he's going to get and we can't wait. I mean, he's so well deserved for his plaque in the Hall of Fame.
For maybe a more casual Baseball Canada fan, or maybe call it strictly Major League Baseball fan that maybe still appreciates, you know, Canadian ball players. Would you say that it's safe to kind of give Greg the moniker the most important guy in Canadian baseball that you maybe don't know?
Yeah, I'll say that. He's so behind the scenes. Like he doesn't want publicity. Like when I called him, he's like, "Oh, do I have to give a speech?" Just like it wasn't his first words, but he's like, he just doesn't like he doesn't want to be the limelight. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to be on stage. And if you guys know him, I'm sure you do, and everyone listening knows him or have heard stories about him. He gets the job done. He doesn't want to be the front and center of attention. And he's just so cool and calm that way. I mean, yes, he's going to give a speech. Yes, he's going to be front and center because he's going to be on stage all by himself. So he's going to, and he's of course fine with that, but he's just like, you know, he's just the guy that's a quiet fella that gets the job done, and everyone should know more about Greg and all the great things he's done.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, him like kind of not wanting to be in the limelight. I think, a lot of like kind of coaching types are that way, but I thought it was funny at the press conference after the inductions. Every time he was asked a question, he kind of did deflect and was kind of like, oh yeah, it's the players, kind of tossing the attention off of him. But it's been a really great career from him. Obviously, he won the Tony Gwynn Award from Baseball America for his lifetime contributions to baseball in 2022, and really just a great guy who obviously isn't done and is going to continue to mask or leave his mark on the next era of Canadian baseball. I guess for you, kind of seeing a guy like him going, like, what is the importance of having somebody like that in the Hall of Fame?
It just shows, like, again, the amateur side of the game, because again, he's really in the junior team and national team, which is and the national team is obviously pro players mostly, but the junior team's all these 15, 16, 17-year-old high school kids that are really trying to make it. And he takes them to Dominican, he takes them to Florida, he takes them everywhere, a couple trips every year, and really shows them, if they want to get to the next level, this is what they got to be, right? So they play the Dominican Summer Leagues and they play some single A teams or rookie ball teams. And, Greg gives them the opportunity. If the kids want to run with it and do well, the opportunity is right there for them. And if it wasn't for Greg in Baseball Canada giving that opportunity, then the programs wouldn't be so well. We wouldn't be talking about the 17 guys in the big leagues right now. Majority of them went through either the junior or national team program, and again, a lot of guys in Double A and Triple A, same thing. I mean, without Baseball Canada and their start, who knows where you guys would be.
Yeah, no, 100%. We can keep moving on here. I think it's funny that Érik Bédard and Rich Harden go in back-to-back years because in some part of my brain they hold like the same space almost. It's funny, obviously, kind of different pitchers, but really really excellent career for Érik. Especially his time with the Orioles. Seeing him come in, and I'm gonna group him with Rich Harden, but like kind of that guy, the guys from that era, kind of in the late 2000s, the early 2010s. What is like that era different for seeing a group of pitchers like those two and Ryan Dempster and guys like that all kind of having their success at the same time?
Yeah, and you can toss in Jeff Francis, right? We put
Yeah.
Jeff in 2022,
Yeah.
Rich in 2023, and now Érik 25s. Again, they're all sort of similar age. They all, Jeff's from BC and Érik's from Ontario, and Rich is from BC and whatnot. But they all played. They didn't all play with Baseball Canada, but they all still sort of went through the bit of the program. They all played junior, senior team at some point, some more than others. But Érik's again another one of those quiet guys. Like you don't hear anything about him. I mean, he had that big trade for Jones with Baltimore and Seattle, the
Yeah.
outfielder, and because Érik was one of the top pitchers at the time. Érik battled a lot of injuries. Again, every team has injuries, and everyone almost gets hurt. Very few players don't get hurt at some point in their career. But still, when Érik pitched, I mean, he's the number one lefty for Canadians in innings pitched, strikeouts, and games started, right? So you think the game's 150 years old, 160 years
Yeah.
old, and number one Canadian is Érik Bédard after all these years. So again, it's so well deserved. He's another guy that's just so quiet. You're hard to get a word out of him anytime. But again, that's just their personality, which is totally fine. You look at their playing career, and Jeff Francis is basically number two and everything, and Érik's number three and everything for Canadian lefty, or number one, everything's for Canadian lefties. So now we got number one and two in the Hall of Fame. It's making perfect sense.
I just kind of like the notion. It's nice that that era, of Canadian baseball is obviously reaching that kind of maturity, if you will, and that these guys are making their way to the Hall of Fame. Uh, as someone that obviously followed the Jays at that time, it was a mixed bag at times. And, with retrospect, you're able to kind of see, even despite the maybe struggles of that era of maybe Blue Jays baseball, there was still plenty of Canadian talent to go around across Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah, and you throw in like the hitters, right? You got Walker who finished his career up in the early 2000s. You got Matt Stairs, you got Russell Martin, you got Jason Bay, you got again on and on and on. Those are just some of the stars. You got all kinds of guys who played sort of part-time and whatnot. And it's just again, it goes back to the Jays in the early 90s when they were so good and jumped 10 years, and you got all these 20 to 25-year-olds that are just, you know, starting their career, the prime of their career. Like there's that gap of a few years where these guys, and you totally look at it. I mean, they're basically all in our Hall of Fame now. And it's just one of those things where they just all sort of came up at the same time and sort of pushed off each other and did really well.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like it really just hits me like right in the childhood, seeing them go in and everything like that. I guess you mentioned him being a quieter guy, and it's unfortunate that he won't be able to make the ceremony. But what was the call with him like?
It was quiet.
Yeah.
No, but it was fine. Again, he was honored to be inducted. You're right, he's not able to attend, but he still sees the other people in the Hall of Fame. Again, his people he played against and a couple he played with, and he actually played with Jose for a very short time in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And Jose said, as soon as I told him about Bedard, he's like, I remember that kid. We played together in Baltimore. And so it's just kind of funny. Even though it was a very short time, if you look it up, they didn't play very long together, but Jose remembered him. And he said, yeah, he was really quiet. And I said, yeah, he is really quiet. But it was great. I mean, he's just a different personality than someone like Jose. Jose is loud and outgoing and likes to speak in the microphone. Érik, not so much, but still great people. And we're happy to get him in the Hall of Fame because he deserves it. Again, after 160 years, Érik's number one for those three categories of lefties. So that's pretty impressive.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
We can keep moving on. Obviously, kind of doing our research in the lead up for this one. I think maybe one of the best nicknames I've ever heard comes out of Arleene Noga, the Iron Lady, which is just amazing. For her being a player in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, getting her chance to go in is really cool and really interesting to kind of look up her story as somebody from Saskatchewan that ends up playing in that league. How does it go about that she ends up being inducted?
Yeah, you look at when we induct people, we look at their obviously their playing career, but also after their playing career and how they
Yeah,
stayed involved and what they did. I mean, she played just over 350 games, I think it was, so about 3 or 4 seasons in the league. The league lasted 10 seasons, so she played almost half. But she was the Iron Lady, which is kind of unique because Major League Baseball just celebrated the Lou Gehrig's Day on the past weekend, and which is great. They're doing that, and he was of course the Iron had the nickname too. So the Arlene is, she's passed away, of course. Her daughter's coming from Saskatchewan,
nice.
which is great. And we're gonna hear more unique stories, right? Again, like it's just a totally different time. I mean, Amanda played now for Baseball Canada. Arlene played in the 40s
Yeah,
in a professional baseball league that was started up during the war. So totally different time that none of us can even fathom or think about because we weren't alive. But her daughter's going to be able to tell direct stories about what her mom did
yeah.
and faced and what she had to do with the league. And Arlene was sort of the main spokesperson for the Canadian women after the league finished, which was really key and important to us. She helped with the movie A League of Their Own. Supposedly she helped teach Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell how to play baseball. So that's pretty cool when you think about that. And so she's just involved. Like she played, she stayed involved, and she gave back, which are three of the really key important things. And it'll be really cool to hear her mom's or her daughter's stories about her mom.
How important to you is it to preserve and honor the history by inducting someone like this?
It's like what we're about. I mean, we're a baseball history museum, right? I mean, so it's all facets of the game, professional, amateur, 150 years ago or 10 years ago, right? We do have a display in the museum about the current Canadians because obviously that's still important too. We like to highlight them and talk about them. But I mean, obviously most of our museum is the history part of Canadian baseball. And putting Arlene in is just another way to reach back to tell people about the league and all the other ladies. There are 68 Canadian ladies that played in that league. And just a way to reach back and tell people about that. Yeah, this has happened. Women play professional baseball and it's going to start up again next year, right? In the Women's Professional
Yeah.
Baseball League in the States. So I say about time. Like, why not? Let them play. Let's get a team in Canada, right? And let have women play baseball. I mean, it's happened in the past. It should be happening now, and it's going to be happening next summer. So that's really exciting.
I'm glad you brought up the League of Their Own advising because that's, a super fun story. And I think I know the answer to this question, but is this going to be the first time that Madonna will be referenced in a speech or at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame?
I think so. I've been here a long time, and I don't remember using Madonna's name very often or at all. But so hopefully Carol Lee, the daughter, will bring that up, and I'm sure she'll get asked at some point in the weekend if it's not in her
Yeah.
speech. It'll be asked at some point in the weekend to explain a little further what happened during the movie training for the baseball aspects.
Yes, yes, very cool. We can wrap it up. Gerry Snyder, key member of bringing the Expos to Montreal, Major League Baseball to Canada. It's really cool when you get like guys like these in there because obviously it's people that played a role in creating what we all love to follow and watch today, and obviously a big role in us like even being here talking about this today. So I guess for you seeing a guy like Gerry Schneider go in. What is the importance that he had, and how was he able to play such a key role in bringing baseball to Canada?
Well, again, the Expos were the first, right? I'm really big on the first, right? I mean, yes, the Blue Jays are still here and are my favorite team, but the Montreal Expos were the first team, right? So that's really what it's all about. And Gerry Snyder, again, like Greg, would have had help on the side, but like Greg, he was the main guy who was just pounding the pavement, trying to get Major League Baseball to pay attention, right? The Montreal Royals had just left a few years earlier, so Major League Baseball had their eye on Montreal, knowing that they'd ran a successful AAA team for many decades. But they really, they talked about expansion, talked about movement, and settled on obviously bringing a new team into Montreal. he didn't let go. He just kept pushing. He got Charles Bronfman on board. He got John McHale on board, which, as we know, are two of the most important people who are actually in our Hall of Fame already, but to do with the Expos. And then it happened. I mean, Major League Baseball said yes. Gerry was at the meetings. Again, without him pounding the pavement and pushing, the Expos might not have happened, and we wouldn't have had baseball in Montreal. But he did, and Major League Baseball said yes, and so 1969, the Expos played their first ball game, which is pretty awesome.
Can you speak a little bit to the importance of the Expos in the kind of lore of Canadian baseball? Because you spoke about them being the first, right? They predate the Blue Jays. And, I was very young when they ultimately moved to Washington. And in some respects, I never really was able to fully appreciate the Expos because they were gone before I really was able to fully kind of comprehend the concept of a team leaving a city. So can you kind of speak to their relevance and their importance in Canadian baseball lore, especially in those early years when Gerry would have been involved?
Yeah, I mean, again, Montreal Royals were around for a long time. We all know Jackie Robinson played there, but many other famous people played there. But the Expos, again, like they brought Major League Baseball to Canada. Jim Fanning and McHale and Bronfman and obviously Jerry Snyder and a few others. They didn't have the stadium built on time. They didn't have a big enough stadium, but they used Jerry Park and they made it work. And the fans, Rusty Staub came in and he was the Grand Orange right away. He fell in love with the French and the Montreal fans. They fell in love with him because he gave back to the community all the time. And it's just one of those things. And the Expos, like every expansion team, of course, struggled for the first few years. But when you look at their roster, they started to get the Gary Carters and Andre Dawson, Tim Wallach, Steve Rogers, like going on, Alice Valentine, and on and on and on and on and on. There's a lot of them. So many great players. You look who are either in Cooperstown Hall of Fame or our Hall of Fame, and they got their careers started or blossomed in Montreal. And it was all the great coaches and general managers and teammates that really got them going. And for several years, they were right there. I mean, they only made the playoffs one year, but they just missed a couple other years, and they being all that great talent on the team really brought the excitement to baseball, right? Because you were cheering for all-stars and MVPs and Cy Young contenders, and it just meant baseball was exciting. And when they started having success in the late 70s into the early 80s, that was really when it got exciting. And then you got guys, like Larry Walker played for them, and Matt Stairs and Joey Siddle, and I'm going to forget some Canadians, but a whole David Wainhouse and a whole bunch of Canadians obviously played for the Expos, and that just brought more excitement that you could cheer for a Canadian team and a Canadian player on that team, which was double cool.
Yeah. Really, really awesome. And, I think really unfortunate that for like my generation, Jori's generation, like of baseball fans that we didn't get to kind of experience the Expos at their peak and kind of see a team in Montreal for sure. Gonna be really cool though. I know there's a Netflix documentary coming out on the Expos and kind of what led to them leaving. So that'll be interesting to follow. But as we kind of progress through the week here, obviously the ceremony, as we mentioned on Saturday. What is your favorite part of the weekend and just kind of in general the induction ceremony there?
Yeah, it's got to be the speeches and the ceremony because again, you never know what the players are going to say. Russell Martin had a very emotional speech in
Yeah.
2024 because he thanked his parents first instead of last. So he broke down, and which is totally no. We get lots of people that break down during their speeches and they're thanking their wives and children and parents because obviously without them, they wouldn't have had the Major League Baseball experience without their support from back in the family. Just listen to their speeches, just the way they talk about their teammates and how thankful they are that all these people, right down from their coach was 5 years old, right? High school coach, college coach, pro coach, again, like it takes a team of people. And that's one reason our class is so cool. We have coaches, we have executives, we have players, so once again, our class this year is a wide variety of baseball people that did a variety of things in the game because you need all aspects to make the game go around.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. It's one of my favorite events on the Canadian baseball calendar, on the baseball calendar. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it this year, first time in a couple years, so won't be able to get out there. Rich, really disappointed about that, but yeah, if anybody can attend, if anybody has the weekend off, I highly suggest going out, making the trip to St. Mary's. It's well worth the time. Really exciting, and you get to rub shoulders with some Canadian baseball royalty like Scott Crawford. So very exciting. Scott, I just want to thank you again for all the time, all the insight. First three-time guest, so I guess you can add that to the resume if you want. But no, thank you so much for your time, your insight. It's always appreciated, and we always love having you on and catching up and chatting some baseball.
No, it's great. I'll just call me when you want me for a fourth time. I'll be there. Love talking baseball with you guys, and I appreciate the support for the Hall of Fame too. I know you guys have been here a lot, and just keep promoting Canadian baseball and the Hall of Fame. We're all working for the same thing, right? Canadian baseball and making it bigger and better and more well known. So it's we're all pulling the same way. So it's great. So thank you very much.
100%, absolutely. That is Scott Crawford, the Director of Operations at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. That is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View Pod. If you're listening along on the podcast provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEB_pod.